We continue now at the top of Daf Tube Beis in Meseches Moed Kattan. This is Moed Kattan Daf 9b. The Gemara in the previous Amud asked that there was a contradiction in Psukim. In one pasuk, it implies that a person should weigh the different mitzvahs in front of him and decide which one to do, which one is more important. And the other pasuk seems to indicate, no, whatever mitzvah comes to you, whatever mitzvah presents that opportunity, you should do that mitzvah. And so the Gemara now is in the middle of answering, Kan b'mitzvah she'i efshar la'asosa al yedei acherim. If you have a mitzvah that can't be done by anyone else, so then you don't weigh anything. Whatever mitzvah comes your way, you should do it. But if it's a mitzvah that can be done by others, let's say the smaller mitzvah can be done by someone else, then you should weigh it out and do the larger mitzvah. Rashi over here says, "Uva mitzvah she'efshar la'asos al yedei acherim al tefales el mitzvah shebol yodcha ben gadol ben katana aseh." You shouldn't measure anything out. If no one else can do it, whether it's a big mitzvah that comes your way or a small mitzvah that comes your way, that's what you should do. And the Gemara continues, Hadar Yasvi v'kami Bayil, who then they were sitting, this is talking about Rabbi Yonasan ben Asmai and Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim, quoted from the previous Amud. They had another contradiction in Psukim. Ksiv, one pasuk says, Yikara hi mipninim, v'chol chafotzecha lo yishvu ba. It says everything that you have is not equal to the Torah. Ha-cheftzei shamayim yishvu ba. It seems like things that are cheftzei shamayim, your chafotzim, things that have to do with material items, that does not compare to the Torah. But cheftzei shamayim does compare to the Torah, as Rashi over here says. You should be mevatel all of your desires or all of your wants in order to learn Torah. Meaning if you have the opportunity to do a mitzvah, you should be mevatel Talmud Torah v'asok b'mitzvah, and you should deal with the mitzvah. That's the implication of the first pasuk. But there's another pasuk that says, there's nothing that compares to Torah, meaning to say even mitzvahs, dafilu cheftzei shamayim lo yeshvuba. Even cheftzei shamayim, you're not mevatel a mitzvah in order to learn Torah. And so they answered as follows: Kan b'mitzvah she'efshar la'asos al yedei acherim. Here we're talking about a mitzvah that can be done through others. If the mitzvah can be performed by somebody else, so then you should learn Torah. But kan b'mitzvah she'i efshar la'asos al yedei acherim. But if it's a mitzvah that cannot be done through somebody else, so then you should do the mitzvah. And again, you should be mevatel Torah in that case. And the Gemara continues with the story again from the previous Amud. Amru lei. So now Rabbi Yonasan ben Asmai and Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim, they said to the son of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, they saw him standing over there. They said, "My boy Ishacha, what are you doing over here?" So Amar Lahu, so he said to them, "Do Amar liyaba, because my father told me, Zil gabayo delivarchuch, that you should go to these people, they should give you a bracha." So Amru lei, so they said to him as follows: It should be the will of Hashem that you sow, that you plant, but you do not reap. Ta'ayil v'lo tepuk, you should bring in and not take out. And tepuk v'lo ta'ayil, you should take out and not bring in. Lecharuv beisach, your house should be destroyed. V'leisu v'shpizach, but the area where you lodge, the area where you stay, should be inhabited. Libalbal pesurach, your table should be confused. V'lo sechzei shatacharatan, you shouldn't see a new year. So when the son of Rav Shimon bar Yochai got to his father, Amar Lei, he said to him, Lomi boy divruche lo birchan. Not only did they not give me a bracha, avot tzure, and they seemed to say things to me which were actually bad, which were negative. So Amar Lei, so he said to him, My amrulach, what exactly did they say to you? So Hachivachi amruli, so he said, this is what they said to me. So Amar Lei, so Rav Shimon bar Yochai said to his son, Hanach kulu birchasaninu. Everything that they said really is a bracha. Tizra v'lo sechtzad, what does it mean you should sow and not reap? What it means is, Tolid banim v'lo yamusu. You should give birth to children and they shouldn't die. Ti'ayil v'lo tepuk, you should bring in and not take out. Means to say, Ta'ayil kal, so you should bring in a daughter-in-law. V'lo lemusu benach, and your son shouldn't die, the leifkun, which would mean that the daughter-in-law would leave you. And tepuk v'lo sa'ayil, you should take out and not bring in. What does that mean? It means Tolid benasu, you should give birth to daughters. V'lo yamusu gevrayu, and then their husbands shouldn't die. V'lahadru losach, and then they're going to return to you. And lichrov beisach v'leisu v'shpizach, what does it mean that your house should be destroyed, but the place of your lodging should be settled with people? It means to say, dahai olma ushpizach, v'ayolma beisa. What it really means is this world is ushpizach, and the next world is beisa. Means to say that you should be settled in this world, you should live a long life. That's what they were trying to say. Like the pasuk says, kirbam batemo liolam. Literally, it means that their inner thought is that their house should be forever. But the Gemara darshans al tikri kirbam ela kivram. Don't read as kirbam, but kivram, meaning their burial. That's the idea that the bayis refers to the next world. So again, the bracha was, you should live a long life. And libalbal pesorach, what does it mean to say that your table should be confused? Bivani uvevnasa means to say, you should have sons, you should have daughters, you should have a lot of people around your table. Below tichzi shatachanata, you shouldn't see a new year. What does that mean? Delo tamus intach, it means to say that your wife shouldn't die. v'lo sinsiv into sachrisi, that you shouldn't have to go marry another wife. The Gemara continues with a similar story. Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta ifter minei de Rav. Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta was departing from Rav. Amar le'avu, so his father said to him, Zil legabi de levarchach, go to him so he should give you a bracha. Amar le, so he said to him, Yehei Rav, it should be the will of Hashem, the lo tevayish, the lo tisbayish. You shouldn't shame others, and you shouldn't be ashamed. So asa gabe avu, so he went by his father. Amar le, my amar lach, and he said, what did he tell you? Amar le, milin bi'al mahud amar le, he just said some words to me, they have no meaning. Amar le said back to him, no, birchach birchasa de barchim kutchabrichu li Yisrael. He actually gave you the bracha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Klal Yisrael, v'tanaban, he even repeated that bracha. Like the pasuk says, "V'achaltem achol v'savo v'hilaltem v'gomer v'lo yevoshu ami liolam." It says again, you should never be ashamed. That's the idea of v'lo tispayish. V'datem ki b'karev Yisrael lani v'gomer v'lo yevoshu ami liolam. And it's repeated again. My nation should never feel shame. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. V'yosa isha tachshiteh. A woman is allowed to do all of her adornments, her cosmetics on Chol HaMoed. The Gemara says, Tan Rabban, and the rabbis taught, Elohein tachshitei nashim. The following are considered the cosmetics that a woman can put on Chol HaMoed. Kochelas, she can paint her eyelids. Upokasas, she can remove hair. Uma'avira srak al poneh, she could put srak, refers to like a red makeup on her face. V'ika de'amri, and some say ma'avira srak al poneh shel mata. What it really means is removing the hair in the lower area, in the pubic area. So again, these are the various things that can be done on Chol HaMoed. The visa de Rav Chisda mekashta ba'anpe kalsa. Now the wife of Rav Chisda, she adorned herself in front of her daughter-in-law. So Yosef Rav Huna bar Chinana kami de Rav Chisda. So Rav Huna bar Chinana was sitting in front of Rav Chisda. V'Yosef v'kamer, and he said as follows, Lo shanu ela yalda, this halacha that you can do this on Chol HaMoed is only talking about a young girl. However, avol zakena lo, but if it's an older woman, like in this situation, the halacha is not true. Rashi over here says, Be'an pekalsa means to say, Shaisa kolkach zakena shaisa lakala she eishas bina. She was so old, she already had a daughter-in-law who had married her son. That's the point, that she's older. And lo shanu hadamar osa isha tachshita. That's what we say, that a woman's allowed to do all these cosmetics. Ela yalda bachura shedarka b'kach. That's a young girl. That's normal for a young girl. Ulahachi avol simcha b'moed. That's a certain simcha that she gets from that on a moed. Avol zakena lo, but somebody older shouldn't do it. Ve'echi avda ishtechachi. How did your wife do this? The mikshata av zakena. She's an older woman. She shouldn't be doing this on Chol HaMoed. And so the Gemara continues. Amar le. So he said back to him, it's not true. Ho Elokim afilu imcha. By God, even your mother, v'afilu imad imach, even the mother of your mother, v'afilu omedes al kibr, even somebody who's standing over her grave, she's so old that she's ready to die, still she's allowed to do this on Chol HaMoed. The Amri Inshi, because people say, bas shisin kebas shis, a woman who's 60 is the same as a woman who's 6. L'kal tavla rehata. Run to the sound of the timbrel, and Rashi over here explains, l'kal tavla rehata perish kishkosh zazug, meaning when they hear the bell ring, meaning they're all going to run towards the music at a celebration. The point is, even just like a girl who's 6 years old who's going to run to the music, the same is true with a woman who's 60 years old. And the same is true with the cosmetics, meaning you get as much joy out of it as an older woman as a younger woman. The Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Rabbi Yehuda Omer lo sasu. Rabbi Yehuda said that she shouldn't put on lime on her face, because while the lime is on her face, it doesn't look so nice. It actually causes a tsar. The Gemara says, Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer, we learned in a brayso, Rabbi Yehuda says, Isha lo sasud, mimnesha nivul hu la. Again, a woman shouldn't put lime on her face on Chol HaMoed, because it's something that's unpleasant, that causes her tsar during the Moed. Moed Rabbi Yehuda, but Rabbi Yehuda admits, B'sidshi yechola lekaflo b'Moed. If we're talking about a lime that can be removed on Chol HaMoed, so in such a situation, shetoflasu b'Moed, that already she is allowed to put on Chol HaMoed. Even though right now it's causing a pain, but simcha hi lachar zman, it's going to be a simcha for after she removes it. Rashi over here says sheichol kafla b'moed afal bishi menuvelas pasid. Even though right now she has the sit on her and it's uncomfortable. And Rashi continues simcha hi lachar zman. It's a simcha after the time, meaning b'moed l'sofa moed, meaning on the holiday, towards the end of the holiday. La'achar shekiflaso, as I said, after she removes this lime, shetafla lefisha meisha sasar maran sabasar. After she removes this lime that she put on. So it's going to remove her hair, it's going to make the skin look nice. Since this sid is going to cause a simcha after whatever time period, that's why she's allowed to apply it on Chol HaMoed, even though right now it might be causing a tsar, but again, when she removes it, it's going to be a simcha. And so the Gemara continues, but does Rabbi Yehuda really hold of this logic? Rashi says, what logic? In other words, does Rabbi Yehuda really hold that even though something is bad now, but if it's going to be good later, that's considered a simcha. Does he really hold of that? But we learned in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda says, Nifroin mehen mimnei shemetzar. Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to collect debts from them. This is talking about from the non-Jews. We'll see Rashi in a moment, because it causes them pain. Amru lo, when they said to him, Afa pi shemetzar achshav, even though it's a pain right now, sameach v'lachar zman, isn't he going to be happy that he paid off his debts after a time period? Apparently Rabbi Yehuda doesn't care what's going to happen later on. He only cares that it's a tsar right now. Rashi over here explains, Nifroim mehem mehakusim biyom chagam. What we're talking about over here is a situation where you're collecting debts from the kusim on their holiday. When a person has to pay money, they're in pain. So that's what he's saying over here. You're allowed to collect these debts because it puts them in pain. It's not helping them celebrate the holiday. The point is, you're not allowed to pay them money on the holiday. It's not appropriate to make them happier on their holiday. Then he's going to go. He's going to be so happy on his holiday. He's going to go admit and say thanks to his avodah zarah. That's explained in Meseches avodah zarah. They responded to Rabbi Yehuda. What are you talking about? When he pays off the debts, he'll also be happy. Because he's paid off. So he shouldn't be able to collect the debts. Apparently Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of that logic. As long as it's a tsar right now, so therefore it's permitted. So why should he make a difference when it comes to putting on the lime? Why does he suddenly apply the logic that even though it's bad now, but it's considered a simcha because it's a simcha lachar zman? What does Rabbi Yehuda really hold? Does he go by what's now, or does he go by what's in the future? So the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Hanach lehilchus moed. You should leave aside when it comes to the halachas of Chol Moed. Because really everything you're doing on Chol Moed is a situation where you might be having tsar right now, but it's for a simcha later on. So in other words, you see specifically by Chol Moed that we do take into account this kind of logic. Rashi says, Hanach lehilchus moed lachim Rabbi Yehuda hachad deshari. The reason why it's permitted to apply the sid, even though it's bad now, but it's good later, everything you do at Chol Moed that's permitted is for that reason. For example, afiyu bishul. Let's say we allow you to bake and cook on Chol Moed. The mitzar hashta, it's a big pain right now, when he's baking and cooking. But he does it, it's permitted. Why? Because it creates happiness when he's going to eat that which he bakes, when he's going to eat that which he cooks. So it's no different than that. The same thing is true over here, where she's applying the sid. The Gemara continues with another answer. Ravina says, Kusi le'inyan piron. When it comes to a kusi who's paying off his debts, li'olam meitzar, it really is something that always causes him pain. Rashi over here says, Kusi li'olam meitzar sheporeya. He's in pain because he has to pay up. That's why Rabbi Yehuda says that in that case, there is no concept that later on he'll be happy. It's always a pain that he had to pay the money. But earlier, Gabe Tipul, by the case of applying the sid to the face, to the skin, Islay the Rabbi Yehuda, there Rabbi Yehuda does hold, even though it's a tsar right now, simcha liachar zman. It's going to create a simcha later on. The Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Benos Yisrael, the daughters of Israel, shehigiu lepirkan, that they reach maturity, meaning they're now growing the hairs of maturity. But they haven't yet reached the age, that age where you generally mature. So the way they did it was as follows. Anios, the poor girls, toflos asan besid. They would remove the hair using the sid, using the lime. Ashiros, the wealthier girls, toflos asan besolas. They would do the same thing, but they would use solas, fine flour. And benos malachim, and the daughters of kings, beshemen hamor, they would do the same thing, using the shemen hamor, which was a kind of oil. Shenama, like the pasuk says, shisha chadashim beshemen hamor. They spent 6 months in the shemen hamor. Rashi over here says, again, shigiu lepirkan l'seir, they have hairs. They're not yet bas mitzvah, as we say. Shadayin eino din sheyehela and seir ubushas al kach. They're really not old enough for this, and therefore they're a little embarrassed by this, so they want to remove it. So the anios toflos aseir besidu mashiros son. The poor girls, they use the sid in order to remove the hair, and again, each one used what's available to them, whether it be solas, whether it be shemen hamor. And the Gemara continues, Mai shemen hamor. What is shemen hamor? Rav Huna bar Chia says sitchis. It's a kind of an oil called sitchis. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Ami says shemen zayish shalohevi shlish. It's oil that comes from olives, but the olives have not reached a third of their maturity. Tanya, we learned in a brayso. Rabbi Yehuda says, an pikinon. What does an pikinon meaning to say? When it mentions an pikinon in the Mishnah, what is that? Again, it's shemen zayish shalohevi shlish. It is oil from the olives that have not yet reached a third of their maturity. Why do you put this kind of oil on yourself? Because it removes the hair from the skin and it makes the skin glow and makes the skin look nice. And the Gemara continues with a story. Rav Beve Havale Barato. Rav Beve had a daughter. Tafla Aver. So he put on this lime on her, limb by limb, little by little. So Shakal Ba Dalid Meozuze. So when he married her off, he was able to take for her 400 zuz. Rashi over here explains. Shakal Ba Arba Meozuze Shenesiaf. She became very beautiful because he applied this to her. So he took from her husband that amount of money when he married her off. So the Gemara continues, Havahu Kusi B'Shavavuse. There was a certain Kusi, a certain non-Jew in his neighborhood. Davale Brata also had a daughter. So Tafla B'Chad Zimna, he put on this sid, this lime, all in one shot. He didn't do it aver, like Rav Bevi. V'Mesa, and then she died. He figured he'll copy Rav Bevi, but he applied it in a way that was not a proper way. She ended up dying. So he said, Katla Bevi Livrati. Bevi killed my daughter. Amar Rav Nachman said, Rav Bevi Deshasi Shechra. Rav Bevi was a person, he drunk beer. So Bayun bin se tafla. That's why his daughters required that he apply this sid. Rashi over here says, Bayun bin se tafla deshecher megadol hasar. Because when you drink beer, it actually causes the hair to grow. Uma'aves habasar, it thickens the skin. He needed to apply this in order to remove the hair, to heal their skin. That's why they required the tafla. That's why they required the application of this sid. But we the loshasin and shechra, we don't drink beer like Rabbevi. So lo bayin bin sin tafla. Therefore, our daughters don't need the application of this sid. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Amud Aleph.